Welcome, guys. Let's get started today talking about writing with ChatGPT, how to think about it. I'm going to be showing you sort of a progressively more advanced use cases as we go along. We'll start out with fairly easy use case of writing with an AI, and then we're going to just keep sort of layering on things until we run out of time. Does that sound good? I don't spend a lot of time in slides. I think it's better for us to get in and learn AI by doing AI. So you might want to open up a ChatGPT tab. If you've got ChatGPT Plus, you're going to need Plus in order to do what we're going to do today. If you don't have Plus, you can just watch and maybe consider whether or not you want to buy the $20 a month ChatGPT account based on what you're going to see here today. So let's jump in. We're going to be building this GPT today called Draper. I use this GPT a lot because it's good for writing promotional and editing promotional material. So if you're already Click Pro, you can go take the whole course if you haven't already done that. So Draper is a GPT that we learn about in Growth OS. And the first thing I want to do is just go ahead and get this installed with you. You know, when I do these AI trainings, we're almost always working inside the AIs themselves so that we're getting the real experience that we need to actually do real work inside of these tools. And so what you're going to do in order to install Draper into your ChatGPT account is I want you to go punch this into your browser, jointheclick.ai/Draper. And what that will do is open up a Google Doc, and you can make a copy of that Google Doc. I see some people popping in here. Jointheclick.ai/Draper will redirect you into this Google Doc, and then you can just go to File, make a copy, and then you'll have Draper. And we got to install it first, but it's just going to take us a couple seconds, and we'll have Draper installed in your ChatGPT account. There's also a second tab here that we will get to as this training goes along today. Like I said, it's going to start with a fairly easy writing use case and then progressively get a little bit more advanced to where you can start to see what ChatGPT is really capable of with Draper installed. So let's go to Draper here and let's just copy all of this here. Actually, let me back up a second. For those of you that are not members of the Click Pro, if you are a member of the Click Pro, you've probably already done this. If you're not a member of Click Pro, you may have not done this. So go to Tools inside of your Google Doc there. Go into Tools, click on Preferences here. Go to Tools and Preferences and just enable Markdown here. I won't go in a ton into Markdown and what it is and why it's important today. That's a part of that Growth OS training if you want to go through it. But Markdown is an important part of giving AIs instructions that they can understand really, really well. So go to Tools and Preferences and enable Markdown here. Click OK. Now what we want to do is copy everything from here all the way down. So grab all of that. We'll come back in a second and look at these instructions. So you're going to copy all that. And then what you want to do is either click on Edit or right click and copy as Markdown. Now you won't see that if you don't have Markdown enabled. So you need to go to Tools and Preferences and enable Markdown. We're going to copy this as Markdown. Believe me that this is the most technical part of working with ChatGPT is understanding Markdown. I'm not going to go into it a lot today. I'll show you a little bit in just a second when we paste this, but just get this on your clipboard here. So you're going to copy this as Markdown. And then you're going to go into your ChatGPT account. So open up your tab of ChatGPT and click on Explore under GPTs. So you have GPTs, click Explore and click on Create. So you're going to click in that upper right corner. You'll see that you're able to create a new GPT. This might sound like it's technical. It's really not. You're just going to name this thing Draper. And you can give it a description if you want. Writes in a punchy, persuasive voice. Simple. And then we're going to paste in all of that instruction, which is in Markdown. All Markdown is, just real quick, is it's a way of giving this AI some formatting that it's going to understand the structure of the document. You can see that when we look at this, there's all kinds of structure to this document. It's got headings and bullets and all that stuff. The problem is when we just copy and paste this in a normal way, we lose all that formatting and structure. So copying as Markdown allows the AI to see all that structure and understand the document much, much better. So that's it. We've got Draper installed. Now, the only other thing we might want to do is scroll down here and turn on a recommended model. We might get into a little bit into models today, maybe not. It depends on what comes up. But the model that I want Draper to be using is 5.1 thinking here. So you could select that if you want. If you leave it blank, it'll just kind of decide what model to use based on your prompt and how advanced it is. But I'm going to sort of create this recommended model of 5.1 thinking and click on create. So the last thing you do is click create. You probably won't see this screen right here because you're probably not using a ChatGPT Teams account. I'm using a Teams account for my team. If you don't have a Teams account, you won't see this screen, but you will see the next screen, which is just basically going to say view the GPT. And that is it. That's Draper installed. And we click on view GPT. Now you have an AI. You could have given it a little icon. I do like to give these AIs icons. You can go back and do that by clicking on and changing this GPT. You can just click on edit GPT. So all your GPTs line up over here on the left side of your ChatGPT interface here. You got all these spaces over here where you can build these little tools, these little AI tools. And right now you have Draper open and installed. Let's go back and see what Draper does. Like, let's look at its instruction. So we've got it installed. If we look at the instructions for Draper, it's basically just an AI that understands a certain brand voice. And this voice is high impact, emotionally charged. That's why I call it Draper, because it's sort of like, punchy. If you've ever watched the show Mad Men, Draper tends to speak with daggers, right? So I named this AI Draper to remind myself, like, which writing voice is this AI? And it's got a sentence structure that it writes with. So simple and compound sentences, short bursts for impact, occasionally offset with longer, more dramatic lines. And I give it examples and things in here. It's got pacing and rhythm. It's got idiomatic expression, figurative language, rhetorical strategies. In other words, what I've done is create an AI that has instruction as to how I want the writing to read, right? Like how I want that writing to look. And then I give examples in here simply because I cover more of this in Growth OS, the Growth OS training. Giving an AI examples is one of the best things that you can do. We can give it instruction like use repetition for emphasis, but then we want to give it an example of that, right? So that it's like, okay, I get it, right? You told me to do something and you told me an example. So I like to say, show me what good looks like. Show me what good looks like. So if I tell an AI to do X, show me an example of X so that I know what good looks like. It's best practice when creating any instructions, prompts, anything like that for an AI. Okay, so we've installed Draper. I mean, we can start to use Draper right here inside of ChatGPT. We could ask this thing to, right. You can just kind of watch this part, right? Promotional email. We are discounting all of our outdoor furniture, just making this up, by 30% until Sunday. And I could say this is a Black Friday sale, depending on when you're watching this recording. As you guys know, we're right up next to Black Friday. So write a promotional email. We are discounting all of our outdoor furniture by 30% until Saturday. And so it's going to write this in that Draper voice. And certainly you would want to edit this and all that stuff. And we won't get into my theory on like how to write with AI, but you certainly wouldn't want to just take this as is. But you're going to find a lot of good copy in here, chunks of copy, good transitions, and get yourself 50, 75% there using a good AI editor type GPT like Draper. I've built many different voices, like Rowling is more of a storyteller type voice. Reynolds is more of a smartass, sort of named after Ryan Reynolds. But these are the three I use the most: Draper, Rowling, Reynolds, and use some combination. I'll have something that I've created, and then I might have Draper write it, and then I might have Reynolds edit it, right? And sort of work back and forth like that. You can see that I'm working right inside of this GPT here. This is the most basic use case of AI. If you're working inside of AI and you're mainly just starting new chats and you're just trying to get this AI to produce something useful for you, you're probably not having a ton of success, or you're kind of starting to think like, there must be some secret to this. There must, or AI doesn't work for me and what I'm doing. And then you sort of start to learn that I need to be building these GPTs that help me do things and work inside of these GPTs. And that would be sort of like you graduating up to the next level, where it's like, okay, I can create these customized AIs that have custom instruction to do certain jobs, right? And that's a great way to think about GPTs. Think about them the way you would think about a hammer or a screwdriver or whatever. Like when you're working on projects around the house or something like that, when you need a hammer, you pick up your hammer. And then when you don't need the hammer anymore, you set it down. So when you need Draper, you call Draper, you use Draper. When you don't need Draper, you drop Draper, you set it down like you would set down a screwdriver or a hammer. So we think of GPTs tools, and now I'm going to start to graduate up to the next level of understanding here, because what I'd like for you to understand, again, I'll show this link one more time. I don't know if anybody's asking for it in there, but jointheclick.ai/Draper will give you access to that Draper GPT, and then you're just going to create the new GPT. Let me talk about where I think all of this is going, and then start to layer on some more understanding in this hour that you have with me here, and we have it together. Layering on more understanding of what's happening with AI is that, I've been doing this stuff a long time, and I started like right there. I started about 20 years ago, right as Google was becoming this mega platform. Everybody was using it. People were using it for business, and they were using it for personal things. It became this mega platform and dominating the market at like 80% market share, and just held on to that for the longest time in the area of search and advertising. And then you get another dominant platform. Around 2007, we saw Amazon come in and just take over commerce, right, as a platform, right? There's nothing close to Amazon in terms of e-commerce. Today, you'd have to probably jump down to Walmart.com or something like that. But Amazon has always been the dominant commerce player. And there's people that jumped on this sort of gravy train that was Google. I was one of those people. I jumped on the Google gravy train, and I said, I am going to learn this tool. I'm going to learn how it works. I'm going to look under the hood and really understand this platform, because everybody's using it, like everybody. And the same thing happened with Amazon. I did not jump on the Amazon gravy train. I was too busy working in the Google gravy train. But a lot of people in my network, friends of mine, things like that, they jumped on the Amazon gravy train, and they're still riding that gravy train. And then I have even other friends that jumped on more in my network, that jumped on the Facebook gravy train, which is also still chugging along. So whether or not you jumped on the Google train or the Amazon train, these were your first three gigantic mega platforms that, there's so much money and usage driven by those one companies that they just throw off opportunities. There's so many opportunities around them. Well, the problem with these platforms today is that they're crowded, right? There's a lot of people, that have built upon and built authority and businesses and so forth on top of the Google platform, the Amazon platform, the Facebook platform, and they're expensive, right? Like they're mature, right? Like the mature platforms, each of those three. But the fourth mega platform is ChatGPT. Like we are seeing mass adoption of this fourth mega platform. And what I think of when I think of a platform is a business upon which other businesses get built. So other businesses build on top of other businesses all the time. And when I say mega platform, I mean that this is like the 800-pound gorilla in the AI space, which is the next sort of big iteration. I think we all agree that AI is so transformative that it might be bigger than these other three waves all combined. Like you had search back here, you had commerce, and then you had the socialization of the web around 2010, 11, 12. And now you have this transformation into AI, and ChatGPT is that leading platform. So we aren't just seeing people using ChatGPT in the office. They're going to use it in the kitchen. They're going to use it on their cell phone. They're using it for everything, right? So it's going from the office to the living room. We're seeing businesses forming around the outside of ChatGPT, like people building everything from consulting to implementation services to courses, trainings, memberships, podcasts, so publishing, newsletters, like everything. And it's because ChatGPT is such a massive platform that there's tons and tons of businesses being built on top of it. And the other thing that's happening is just like what happened with Google back in 2004, 2005, is people are starting to feel like the business world is starting to think, I'm falling behind. So, they missed the Facebook memo, right? They didn't understand that Facebook and Meta were going to become this big thing. They didn't understand Amazon. They didn't see Google coming. There's tons of businesses that miss these waves, and they start right about now. I think 2026 is going to be that moment where every business on the planet is going to be like, what is this exactly? And how do I get caught up? Right. And that's going to fuel a lot of opportunity as well. So people are building businesses here on top of ChatGPT. They're building productized services like flat fee offerings, retainers to just do, the businesses haven't changed. We built businesses on top of Google. We built businesses on top of Amazon. We built businesses on top of Facebook and Meta. And now people are building on top of ChatGPT because it is that big. So my advice to you is to not be an average user of this tool. There's certain people that, I would say a handful. There's a lot of people that mastered Google back in the early 2000s. There's tons of people that mastered Amazon. There's plenty of room out here, and it is early, right? Your timing is right. Where if you want to jump on the next sort of gravy train, if you will, my advice to you is to learn ChatGPT and other tools like it. So we don't want to just sort of understand how it works. We want to do like I did with Google and like many people did with Amazon and Facebook, which is I want to know everything about this thing. I want to know how it works. I want to understand how to master the tool. So you might ask, well, how do you master this ChatGPT tool? Well, right now, as of the time, I'm recording this, the way to master ChatGPT is to understand that there are 5 components to it. There are projects, there are GPTs, which we just installed one really quickly earlier. There are models, there are threads, and there are tools, these native tools. And so mastering ChatGPT today, if you want to get totally caught up as to how to get the most out of this tool, is to understand these 5 components, that there are projects, GPTs, models, threads, and tools, and they work in a symphony. If you're going to get results out of AI, is to learn how this whole little system is set up. And it's set up really pretty fantastically and changes day to day. Like, how does this work? How does it work today? How does it work the next day? And so my advice to you is to learn ChatGPT at a under the hood level. So I created this course that we talked about. It's called Growth OS. And Growth OS goes through those 5 components so that at the end of it, it's like, okay, I understand projects. I understand threads. I understand tools. I understand GPTs. I understand models. And so I said that, the way I want to run this training today is to start with a fairly simple writing use case, which is hey, write me a promotional email. We are discounting all of our outdoor furniture by 30%. When you use the AI this way, you're going to get pretty average results, probably results that you're like, well, I could have done that a better job with that if I'd have just done it myself. So what I want to do is help you start to think about what is all possible inside of here when you understand all 5 of these components. So if you look down along the left sidebar here, let's start with projects. So projects used to be, and I'm talking about used to be like a month and a half, 2 months ago, you really couldn't tell the difference between what was a project and what was a GPT. Maybe some of you who are on here remember that time where it's like, what the heck is a project? How is it different than a GPT? And they function pretty much exactly the same. Today, they've made the changes necessary to really help us understand what projects are for and how this entire system is supposed to work. And it really, once you understand this relationship between projects and threads and models and GPTs and tools and all this stuff, you'll start to see that the very smart people over at OpenAI that build ChatGPT have built basically an operating system here for, if you want, for business, right? If you want to set it up this way. And that's why I created the Training Growth OS, because I was like, I need to teach people how this works. Because if you really want to master this 4th mega platform and really get on board with it right now, to understand that is to understand this Growth OS process, where it's like there's projects and then there's GPTs and there's models and there's tools. And how do you work them all in sort of a symphony? And so we'll bring Draper back into this workflow again. But the next thing that I want to do with you guys is I want to talk to you about projects, because they are now maybe the most important thing to understand of the 5 things that I've mentioned between projects, GPTs, models, threads, and then all of the tools that are available through the native platform as well. So projects are more important now than probably anything else. So let's go in here and let's click on projects and let's start a new project. The best way for you to learn this stuff is to do it. And so go ahead and do this with me. Go open up your ChatGPT account, go to projects, click on new project, and give this project a name. So let's pretend that we have clients. Okay, we have different clients that we work with or different businesses that we work with. And so let's just create a project called Client Wayfair. Okay, so I chose Wayfair because most of you probably know who Wayfair is. They sell a lot of furniture and home goods and stuff like that. They're an e-commerce company. Let's pretend that they are our client right now. And what I want to point out to you here is, one, super fancy. You can go and you can pick a little emoji. I do like to do this just to keep my ChatGPT account looking nice. And then I want to point this out. So this little gear right here is, as of the time I'm recording this, the only settings you have available to you are the memory settings. And that's good, because if they were going to pick one thing I could control inside of here, it would be the memory. So the default behavior is that every thing that I talk about inside of this project, think of the project like a folder or a container. Everything that I talk about inside of this project will be fair game for the AI across my entire account. That's the default behavior, is that if I'm outside of this project, my AI might reference something that I talked about over inside of that folder. Now, I don't want that, because this is a client or it's a specific business that I want to work on inside of this container. And so I'm going to restrict the memory of my AI to this project only, so that it can only access these memories. This is a really powerful change with how ChatGPT works, actually. And I'm looking forward to them continue to advance our control over what the AI remembers and doesn't remember. Turns out that pretty much explains everything about how well your AI is able to function, is how well the AI is able to fetch and understand context and memories. But I'm going to select project only here. I want my client work with this client to stay inside of this folder and in this client folder only. And that's it. I'm done. I'm going to create my project here. Fantastic. So I've got my new client project. You can see there's no conversations inside of here yet, and that's okay. We're going to solve that in a minute. But now I want you to go back into this document because I did give you a second set of instructions. It's in this tab over here on the left. And that is the Wayfair project instructions. So we'll click on that. And I'm just going to run through this really quickly. So if you go to jointheclick.ai/Draper, you'll see a second tab. And you'll see this in here where I've got this set of information in here for my AI that says, hey, the company here that is inside this project is Wayfair. It's an online retailer of home goods and furniture. They're in the e-commerce space. So it's got a company snapshot here. Then it talks about what do we sell at Wayfair here. And then the last thing it does is it talks about who do we sell to. So there are two pieces of information that when you're working on a business, especially in marketing or sales, we want the AI to understand what are we selling and who are we selling it to. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to take any AI, including Draper or any other GPT or any generic AI, and make it 1,000 times better when it understands this information. So this is the kind of information that we want the AI to always have access to. We always want the AI to have access to what company is this? What is it? Give me this snapshot. And then what does this company sell? And then who do they sell to? So again, I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to copy it as Markdown. Just take all of it and copy it as Markdown. And go back into your project here. And in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little ellipsis menu. We're going to click on that and we're going to add instructions to this project. So I'm going to click on add instructions. And now I'm going to paste in here this Markdown, which is basically just what's the company? Give me a quick snapshot. What do they sell? Who do they sell to? And I'm going to save that information. Now, I don't have to worry about every time I open up this project, I can now start to work with this AI on my marketing and growth initiatives for Wayfair and I don't have to stop and explain things like, hey, I'm working on this company. They do this, they do that, which is something that I call the cold start problem. The cold start problem is when you start working with an AI that has no idea what the heck you're trying to do. It's called zero context of what you're trying to do. And building projects and GPTs is a way of saving instructions, information, guides, and things like that, things that guide the AI, saving it and allowing the AI to access it without you having to tell them again and again and again the same information. It eliminates the cold start. Now, I will point out that you can also add files to a project. So if you have other bits of information that you want this AI to have access to, for example, you might have different reports, competitive research, analytics. So you can attach things like spreadsheets, images, PDF files, documents to that AI's brain so that they're permanently held there. And you can always access that information when you want to from inside of this project. We won't get into that today. It's a little bit beyond what I want to cover in this class today, or this little lesson. You guys follow me so far? So let's go back to this important slide here, that what we're really dealing with, when you scratch the surface of using ChatGPT, you're probably not getting very good results. But when you start to understand, so we have projects, there's something called projects. And what I want you to understand is that inside of projects, I would say that pro users, people that are really using AI well, are doing most of their work inside of a project. So there's a couple advantages of that. The first one is that the project is going to organize your threads. So you can see, like, for example, in my marketing project here for my business, these are just all the conversations get sort of archived inside of the project folder. I can rename them. So you can almost think about these like, a folder Just like we've always used folders since computing started, right? And even before computing, we used folders to organize things. But these folders are a little bit more kicked up, right? They're folders where conversations happen, where files can be attached, that can have instructions, that have an intelligence inside of the folder. There's an intelligence inside of here called ChatGPT that will adhere to instructions, reference files, and actually do work. So this is where work happens, right? So this folder is for my Wayfair client, but it could be for anything. It could be to organize a project around a podcast I want to launch, or you can see that I have this folder here, or this project here, or my email newsletter where I do all of that work inside of there. And it contains instructions, it contains files, it contains threads of conversation that I can continue to come back to and talk through. Understanding what I'm teaching in Growth OS inside of this training in the Click Pro is really about understanding how to completely unlock what this fourth mega platform is capable of doing, which is a lot. So let's continue to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. So now I'm working inside my client folder. Let's go back and do the same exercise where I was basically building some promotional emails for a Black Friday sale. But now let's do it inside of my client project. Remember that this client project has instructions that tell it, hey, we're working on this company, Wayfair. Here's the information about that. This is what Wayfair sells. This is who they sell to. So let's just start working inside of this project on the same thing. Okay. So same terrible prompt. Like there's not a lot of information there in that prompt, just like there wasn't before a lot of information. I don't need a ton of information in this prompt because there's plenty of information attached to this AI through the instructions that we put in there. And so it's going to immediately be like, okay, we're working on Wayfair. I understand who you sell to, and I see the little offer that you're making. I've given it some context. And so let's start to see what happens here. So you can see that it's referencing my personas here. Now, we didn't kind of go into this, but there's two personas that I've included for Wayfair. One is the first-time home decorator, basically like, hey, I just bought a house, I need to decorate the house. And the second one is more of a professional decorator, somebody that's a professional is trying to, do some improvements on houses as a professional. So let's focus this AI. You can see that it's like, do you want this Avery? Do you want to target Avery, or do you want to target Jordan? Jordan is more of the first-time home buyer. So I'm just going to direct my AI. Let's focus on Jordan. So I don't have to explain the persona. It already knows who Jordan is, and it knows Jordan's pain points. And so it's going to be off to the races for me to start getting some really good output, because it's like, oh, I know who we're talking to. I now know what you're selling. You're selling a Black Friday promotion around 30% off outdoor furniture. And it's like, okay, here's some headline options. You can see that this is geared directly towards Jordan, the first-time home buyer. This is your first outdoor space, made easy, and all of that. Ad copy, Jordan style. Outdoor spaces shouldn't be complicated. That hits directly on a Jordan pain point of, I don't know how to decorate a house. This is hard, right? So we go straight at them with the right copy. And this is before I even bring Draper to the party. Draper has not been called yet. We are just working with ChatGPT, but we're working inside of a client project, and we're starting to get some really good stuff. Like we're getting some hooks here, and we're starting to get some email copy here for some subject lines. Now, if we had more time, and I do go through this in the Growth OS training and in a lot of the other trainings that we do it in the Click Pro, but when I build promotions like this, I use this thing called a storyboard GPT. This storyboard GPT allows me to build out a plan. So we'll kind of skip over that. That is in that Growth OS training if you want to access that. But in storyboard GPT helps us to build a promotion that sort of runs from A to Z and has a narrative arc to it. But let's skip over that. And You can see that it's talking about Jordan's persona alignment. Decision paralysis is a problem for Jordan when it comes to decorating the house, delivery anxiety, budget management, all of that stuff. So now that we've got this sort of starting to get boxed out, and just in the interest of time, let's just highlight this right here. And I'm going to click on Ask ChatGPT and just pull that subject line down in here. And I might say something like, write this email. Now I'm going to have, remember that I talked about understanding the full power of ChatGPT means to understand all of these 5 different sort of areas of ChatGPT. So let's talk quickly about tools. So tools are available to you here, and they are always playing around with adding some different ones and taking some other ones away. But one tool that marketers and entrepreneurs like you and I are going to use a lot is Canvas. So Canvas, I turn this on, I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to say, write this email in a Canvas. This is going to activate a native tool inside of ChatGPT called Canvas, and I'm going to run that. But what that's going to do is, first of all, it's going to write that first email. Secondly, it's going to write it in a document called a Canvas. So you can see it wrote the quick email here. And if I click on edit there, I can start to edit this document over here on the right, just like it would a Google or a Word doc. But I can also work with the AI on the left. I can tell it, hey, expand on this, change that, research this, go pull in that. And because I'm working inside of the project, anything that's connected to the project, so whether it's files, so I might have, for example, a document attached that has a whole bunch of email subject lines that I like to use. And I might say, let's get 3 email subject line variations based on our attached email swipe file. Well, it'll go grab that document out of the project and use that context to create better subject lines for you, for example. So you can see that a lot of what's going on here is that I'm working inside of a project in a thread, right? So this is a thread. I'm having a conversation about something specific, some kind of work I'm trying to get done, which is planning the email promotion around this Black Friday sale. I have all the context that's connected to my project. And now I've leveraged Canvas, which is a tool, really useful tool, very useful. I use it all the time to work on written assets, whether they're emails, ads, scripts for videos, whatever it is I'm working on. We oftentimes are going to turn on Canvas because then I can start to edit this myself. I can type in here and then I can download this stuff or copy it and take it elsewhere. I think we are just months, if not days, away from being able to save these documents inside of ChatGPT, which I'm looking forward to being able to do because it's kind of a pain. If I want to keep this document, I do need to take it out of ChatGPT. There's no way of saving this document except that it'll always be sitting in this thread if I want to come back to it. There's no way to export this. I mean, you can't export it now. I think download. So you can download this thing into a Markdown file, which we talked about earlier, into a Word doc or a PDF. But what I'm waiting for is for them to build more of like a Google Drive where I can save documents. I think that's coming. All right. So let's round this out here at the end because we're working on this promotion. And we have an email here that's okay. We didn't give it a lot of context as to what all's on sale, or we kind of said outdoor furniture. Certainly could have brought more information there. But in the interest of time, I just want to talk about the real power here is that you start to understand that you're working inside of a project that has instructions and documents. And then the second thing is that you have access to these tools. So these tools that I was talking about earlier that are like a hammer or a screwdriver. I remember I have Draper, and there's a couple of weird, buggy things going on with ChatGPT just releasing ChatGPT 5.1. So what I'm going to demonstrate to you, maybe by the time you watch this video, won't be the case that you cannot call GPTs with 5.1. Maybe they will have fixed this by the time you're watching this, so you could try it. But you see I hit this @ symbol here And the way the at symbol works is just like you might imagine, is it's able to call or tag in something, right? Whether that be a tool or a GPT. And in order to do this today, as the time I'm recording this, you're going to have to go into ChatGPT 5 instant in order to do this. But this is a super powerful trick. It's not really even a trick. This is how your AI is supposed to work, is that you're working inside of a project. It has context, it has instructions, it has documents. And now you're working on something and you need one of your tools. You need your screwdriver or you need your hammer, right? This thing that does X or Y or Z. Whether it's, like I explained earlier, it creates a storyboard or it creates a marketing hook for you, or in this case, it writes in a punchy, persuasive tone. You're going to turn on ChatGPT 5 instant as of today. You can see that I'm now able to add different tools, and they've got some things that attach to ChatGPT now, like Canva and Booking.com. But what I want is one of my GPTs. I want my hammer or my screwdriver. So I'm going to start calling in Draper here. So I call in Draper. So take a look at this setup now, right? Like this is how you're able to orchestrate your AI. You're working inside of a project. You're using a model, which is ChatGPT Instant. You've called in a tool to work on this canvas, right? This canvas, right? So you've called in this Draper GPT to work on this email with you. And so writing something as simple as, use your voice to rewrite this email is going to edit this email over here in the Draper voice. So you can see that look where my mouse is there. You can see that I've called in Draper and that am using this tool here to impact this canvas. So growth, my growth OS training is, we do lots of use cases like this, but really the idea behind the growth OS training is to help you understand that there is now an operating system inside of ChatGPT. ChatGPT was not built for you to do business. It wasn't built for somebody to create lesson plans at school. It wasn't built necessarily for people to do science or research history. It's not built for any particular use case. It's a general purpose technology. What Growth OS is, it's how do you use ChatGPT for business? How do you use it to grow a business? What are the projects, GPTs, tools, and use cases for using ChatGPT to get real work done and massively increase your productivity, but also the quality of what you're producing? And it's really focused around understanding these 5 concepts of what's a project? How does it work? What's a GPT? How does it work? What's a model? How does it work? What's a thread? How does that work? And then what are the tools available? And by the time you finish the Growth OS training, the idea is for you to have you have a command over what ChatGPT is capable of. And then as we're proceeding inside the Click Pro, what we're working on now is starting to install what I call modules inside of your Growth OS system in ChatGPT. So things like newsletter, which is going to start as soon as next week. We're going to be building the newsletter module into the Growth OS system. So what is the projects, GPTs, tools, prompts, and everything needed to run an email newsletter, for example, or a podcast, or to build courses? So these modules are, let's get specific about a particular type of work that we might be doing inside of ChatGPT. So I'll end by talking about where I think all of this is going. And that is that there is a drag race right now, a drag race between Google and OpenAI, and certainly Anthropic, who makes Claude, is in this race as well, to become the operating system for your computer, basically, and all your devices, right? Where you're going to spend, once you really start to learn AI, whether you do it with me today or this year, eventually you're either going to learn how to use this technology, or you'll probably be retired or whatever, because we're all going to learn it. Like we're all going to learn it, just like we all learn to use the internet. It's just going to be, how intentional are you going to be about learning this transformational technology? How invested were you in learning any of the first three platforms, Google, Facebook, Amazon. You're going to learn it or you're going to not learn it, become pretty much, I would say, irrelevant. So the idea here is to understand what this technology is capable of and how to actually do real work inside of here. Because what you're going to start seeing is once you understand how this works, you will spend less and less time on other websites, inside of other apps. You're going to use more and more of your time inside of one of these platforms, whether it be Gemini over at Google, or whether it be ChatGPT here, or whether it be Claude. You'll spend more and more of your workday inside of one of these operating systems. And Growth OS is about building the business operating system for doing things like you and I do, like the real rubber meets the road type work that we have to do to grow businesses, grow our own companies, the companies we work for, the companies we serve. How does that work? Because this same tool could be set up in a way to run a classroom at a high school, or to run a lab that is researching whatever, right, for science, or this same tool could be used for that. But Growth OS is about how to grow businesses using ChatGPT. So if you're not a member of the Click Pro, I encourage you to join. You can go to jointheclick.ai and check out what we're doing over there. And if you do join, first step, go through Growth OS. Go through the Growth OS training and start joining us for any live calls that we do as a group where we're discussing how we're implementing this. And then be on the lookout for the modules that are going to start coming out around newsletters, course building, content marketing, right? Like we're going to start getting into the more drilling down into the actual disciplines that we do every day as marketers and business owners. I'll stick around if you have any questions. But other than that, if you just came to grab Draper, I'll put that link up one more time. He's a great little AI. Jointheclick.ai/Draper. Just one more time with that link. Yeah, jointheclick.ai is where you can find out more about Growth OS in that little video there. And guys, I hope you got a lot out of this one, whether you join us or not. I hope you get a lot out of these free trainings that I do, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.